Kathleen is going to be out. I think she's joining us on Zoom.
She's supposed to be.
Okay. I'm assuming we don't have any sign up sheet. Did y'all want to say anything or y'all just here to hang out?
Hanging out.
Awesome. Love it. Okay, so approval 4 minutes for blocking. Everybody just look through Lynn's beautiful minutes.
I thought somebody was asking about the last. That was me, yeah.
Okay, we have a
Or
motion.
anything that you want that I needed to add that maybe I missed.
I haven't seen anything on this, but it seems like so long ago. Yeah, we were, back into the first quarter, but.
I had the motion to approve the minutes. January 8th.
I'll second.
All in favor? Perfect. All right. So now we're going to briefly discuss the maximum block length. Did you have a presentation? I know Laura is not here today.
Do you want to do? That's an old business, right? You want to do that first?
Well, it's
I thought it was first.
not new business. It's right underneath the approved minutes.
Oh, that's easy.
It says discussion and then voting later, but we can.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I can do a quick presentation. So this is going to be for discussion and no action because council member is going to make a full presentation, but I'll let you know that we've had some discussion with our part-time land planner, kind of going through some, let's talk a little bit about what we're currently at. Currently at right now, we're a block length is 1,300. What we'll do for the next meeting is I'm going to pull all the different cities around here and look at what their average is. But we're probably pretty close to average, maybe a little bit longer than average. But I think the reason for looking at a smaller block length is that this downtown core and up to probably 14th or 15th Street, you're really looking at that city core of 275. And so the idea that to continue maintaining that quality that we look at doing 275. Now, one of the other things we mentioned, and I had talked to both the land plan and the council member about allowing this, a double block or a quadruple block if you have some box store. And maybe you don't want a box store, but if you have a box store that wanted to come in, and what this will allow is to look at the quality. So, for example, there are things other than box stores that would take that kind of size, which may not be what this town wants. Storage yards, mini storage could be just a variety of things. Parking lots. There's a variety of light industrial type stuff that maybe this town doesn't want, or maybe they wouldn't. So what this does is actually looks at a block size and basically the street length. So what we're talking about is 1,300 feet before there's an intersecting street, or with a cul-de-sac, it'd be 1,000-foot long. That's actually. So tonight is just for a discussion for you to talk about what you think about that. I think last time we talked, I think Lynn had mentioned that if you were to look at doing 275 or something of a reduction, that you also look at reducing building. And that's something that could be looked at as well. And that was said. I'm not saying that's something that you want to do. I'm just saying that was what was said. So having said that, and again, you can tell I'm very, non-committal about this. That's it. That's my explanation.
So I did have a long conversation with all the parties involved on this, and it was hard for me to get my head wrapped around a lot of it. I'm not a big fan of imposing some of these things on personal property rights, but I do think maintaining the growth of some of the commercial stuff along the core of our town made a lot of sense to me. So my counter to this proposal was, what if we did a 275 maximum block length only on commercial zones? So that would basically be anybody that wants to come in and put in a commercial property would then the inside of it, so it would make it where you wouldn't have these massive developments. But that was just my throw at, let's find a middle ground between both. How do we maintain not having some massive development that still allow personal property rights to develop their own property kind of the way they want?
Let me ask you, just from me understanding, is that basically the main reason for the councilperson that brought this up, is it really just to kind of keep that massive growth of a commercial size store out of our close proximity? Is that really the only benefit? Or is there anything else behind the scenes that I'm not aware of that this could affect personal property ownership and stuff like that? I like the concept of keeping this square right here to the north side of KNC and to the south side of, you know, approaching Rocky J, right, to have that small town charm and not see a Walmart right in the middle. I like that. With the amount of red tape we have in our code anyways, we already taken so many rights out of the personal owners or private owners, you know, ability. So I don't mind taking one little thing if that's a benefit from that standpoint. Is that really the only thing that's in this? That's all I can see really.
I think there are some moving parts in terms of connectivity and having flow of traffic and making it to where you can get around town in a different manner. I think certain people really like the feel of the communities over here that they would like to see expanded upon.
Right.
My point on it was, while I do enjoy this side of town, I wouldn't want to live over there, and so I don't think forcing that kind of development on the rest of our communities necessarily in my mind. Because I think some diverse style of living, if people aren't trying to live where they want to live versus in one style of design.
How town Lego? What's the length of that?
275, right?
Is it?
Yeah, we went all, we were talking about the courthouse piece right here. I think that's 275.
Yeah,
Two 75.
It's under 300 for sure.
Yeah.
That's a big space.
It is a big space, very large space, and anything more than that, doesn't really fit in with, it, overwhelms the things that we have that we want to keep.
Well, there was some conversation about if we do this just along the corridor, then you'd have, let's say on 281, they would have something simple up front and then build a wall back behind. And so my thought of doing it commercially zoned is that it would impact regardless of where you are in the community, it would still maintain that smaller development.
So does this include not just the frontage, but how long they can go?
Correct.
Right,
275
it's 275 for
For
the intersection.
sure, so that is really.
So 275, but I think lots of opportunity to get an SCP type variance or an exception if you wanted a double block or something for the community. That's an idea to do that as well.
And so, because I've kind of been on this, so, for example, this would include Elm Street and everything on Elm Street. If it's not just 281, how wide is this going,
The proposal is city limits.
the whole city limit?
Well, if you think about it, there's not much big land available unless someone
No,
sells 3 or 4 lots, you know.
Well,
So
so
the one that's
there's
there's really nothing.
like 350 acres of undeveloped land, right? So you've got a lot of agricultural land that this would impact it because of the place. Now, managing neighborhood development, I understand from a density standpoint, but also from a property right standpoint, I kind of feel like, you know, if they want to build a Walmart, sure, let's make sure that it fits our community. But if they want to build 31 acre block homes, I don't think that it should have this exact block structure where they could have some other design that makes sense for them. So I don't want to necessarily go after property owners, especially generational property owners, that this is an investment property, whatever it ends up turning into. But I do think we can control having some of the larger development if we focus on commercial lots versus just my thoughts. And I figured that was a good starting point. If this is something that they're wanting to do community-wide, that seems like a pretty large step versus something that's, yeah.
did I read something that it just includes, it just excludes R1, that's the only one that they're proposing, that they excluded R1?
That's where it started.
That's correct.
So R1 could be as large as it
Right, so it's up to 1 home per acre. So you couldn't have any more homes per acre in R1, so that would allow you to have 1 home acre
That
lots.
goes to 5.
Right, but if you wanted to put 2 homes per acre, then you have to comply to this. Is the proposal that was presented to us.
Does this affect any, I couldn't see it in there because it affect anyone that has a block length, let's say of the 275, that's what they go to, could they build duplexes on those lots?
Well, then it goes into the EDC and applies to the requirements. This is just block length, not
It was just
development.
block length.
Yeah, not development requirements.
Yeah, I don't like taking away property owners' rights, and then presumptions, in my opinion, a lot of stuff that we've passed over the years in this town. But at this point, this is a lesser evil, in my opinion, to keep the charm. I think most of the Blanco people that I've talked to, that's what they want. They really want this to be small town.
Currently, right now with our code, I think that property down there next to King and C could turn into an HEB if that person wanted to sell it and they wanted to.
Right.
With this proposal, we could give the community a little bit more ability to control that if that's what we want.
Okay, so my question is though, if you do commercial, that still allows for other businesses, other types, it's like,
R5.
yeah,
But you couldn't do a lot of that stuff in an R5, right? I mean, that's R5 is limiting what kind of businesses could be there. I don't think you're gonna come in and put in a vet clinic that's 1,300 feet.
No, but you could put in a, venue or a small, like, similar to some of the things, I mean, I'm thinking about like, I know you've got a big spring.
Well, so you can do this for commercial and R5. And that wouldn't be, but they change between the two. I think just when you start getting into residential, it gets complicated.
But see, I'm, R5 is where, like, to me, anyway, is that if it's kind of where you get the charm in a small town. The properties that can kind of toe the line between commercial and residential.
That's an excuse.
But I think all of our R5 is pretty much all along 281 corridor anyway. That's already pretty much structured this way.
Most of it is, but not all.
So it wouldn't be a big stretch to do R5 in commercial.
You can do R5 in commercial, or you can do R5 if it's not residential. You can just say commercial use.
Oh, I see.
And so you
Other end of
actually do the zoning, you can actually say, so for example, R5 can have office space, it can have a restaurant, a large restaurant, as long as the alcohol is less than 50%. But it also can have, small, you have R3 type homes around as well.
So we don't need to vote on anything on this tonight. I think they're gonna come make a presentation to us, but any other thoughts on this, hesitations, pros, cons?
and that would include like apartment complex.
No, that's multi-family.
It would include, yes, it would. Multifamily by definition is actually considered commercial. And not residential. At least in the zoning standpoint, I'm not sure how it is with real estate, but that's zoning considered commercial.
And if they could answer the questions that we had last time that are in the minutes.
Yes.
Your main questions were setbacks and.
Well, my concern is that everybody doesn't want any growth, so we're not gonna make any money, so we're not gonna be able to pay to fix any roads. So that's my main concern, is that we can't fix the roads we have now. Some are only 10 feet wide, and now we're gonna give the city all these more roads. But then where are we gonna get the revenue? So if we don't generate some revenue and be open to commercial growth of some kind, then you're gonna saddle the citizens with all that money.
That's what, like.
So we have to do that. We can't say we don't want any growth, we don't want anything, we don't want a grocery store, we don't want this, we don't want that, because then we have no money to fix all these extra roads.
But they
So-
can come in for variance, for a double, or quadruple, or whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
double block's not gonna get much on there.
But it's 605 gets rid of HEB.
I mean, if they wanted to put a small
No, but
marketplace, they
Even,
could.
If you look at the thing, it's 9 or something. The one that, the small one in Dripping Springs, it's like 900 and something feet. So if they could get a variance beyond the double or triple, I mean, you just have to have a door open for people. So if there's a really quality business that wants to come in, you know, we can't be so shut down, because part of it, in my mind, I sort of feel like everybody's only concerned about roads and infrastructure. But where's the money to do the roads and the infrastructure? So I'm just a little leery of doing all these little bitty blocks citywide. And then all of a sudden the city has all these roads they have to repair and they don't have any money.
So I really appreciate what you're saying, Commissioner, because I worry about that all the time, with the finances. So you appreciate that. One of the things that this can do, and I'm not saying I'm really for it, but I am saying one of the things that this can do is, let's be honest, a large development that comes in is going to have a development agreement. And if you really have these structures in place, that can be used as leverage to get what we need out of a development agreement. So doing the work that you're doing is still worth it, because even if we do some kind of development agreement or some sort of I can't think of the word now, but like we did with Los Altos, and even if we do some agreement like that, you still can use this as a basis. So,
To allow them larger, because my thought was, let's say someone builds a subdivision right out there, way out on the outskirts, and we force them to do 275 blocks. No one's driving out there to go walk on those roads. So all that does is become an expense for the city, for only those people that live way out there in that little. So if you could do, let's say, you have that door where you could open it up, or like you said, you have a subdivision, it's way out there. I mean, do they really need the 275 blocks, and the city needs all those roads at that time?
I disagree with that, because I lived in San Antonio for 20 years, and the neighborhood that I lived in was the outskirts, and now it's in the 1604 loop. So we're thinking long-term growth. It is gonna go that way. There is gonna be more commercial that way, and we're just trying to protect it right now so that it looks like we want it to look when we do grow. And if HEB wants to come in and they don't like what we're doing, they can do it further up to 81, or they can find another spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Julie on that too, that I think if we're leaving this open for the big box store to save our roads and infrastructure, I think your conversation about needing business and growth to help that problem is correct, but I think it's completely far off as far as why we're here now. And it has nothing to do about letting box stores in. We're here for mismanagement of funds. The reason we're in this place is because no one really had a clue what they were doing the last 50 years of this now. So leaving this the way it is or changing it to the 275, it's not going to be the determining factor of money coming in to fix our roads or not. We need more than an HEB to come and fix our roads. We need another pipeline to come through and offer to pave all our roads again. We need the city to do it next time. That's the cherry on top that we need. In all honesty, I think keeping it this way is going to bring the right businesses to town that we can manage and train. And then also on those small block lengths, let people be resourceful about businesses and utilize their space correctly. So the brokers on the next to them can do the same thing and get double the tax, revenue from that.
But I think there is still an opportunity. If there's some random perfect business that wants to come in, finding a way to do a variance that then allows it. So it's not door closed, just giving them
Yeah.
a way to start the conversation in the direction that we think maintains the community.
Yeah, I agree, but as long as there is that, where it's not just, you only get 2 blocks or 3 blocks, period. I mean, if there is that, where they could potentially do a variance or have an agreement and a development agreement, if it makes sense, I think would be wise.
Have you seen the small Buc-ee's, the little bitty Buc-ee's? It could all fit on that square right there. So I think it's plenty of room for a big box business to come in, but do it small town style.
Like what Warren said too, is that we're not saying they're not going to do it. We're just saying this is going to be hard for you to do this, and we're not going, okay, let's talk about it. Like I said, you got it in your pocket now, so really at the front of it, this is more of a ruse to say we don't allow it. and to have, get more out of it from them. We want that. We want Leaky because we really fully care about the bottom line of Blanco. And they're not gonna really look at us as people our population increases, right? The algorithm just doesn't make sense for them yet. But I think it's good to have at least some more upfront. We don't allow most of this. Oh, let's talk. I think it's a good idea. From that standpoint, at least.
Okay, so any other discussion we're doing this, we want to wait till I see the presentation next month and then we can actually vote from there and go.
Who's gonna be presenting?
I think Laura Swinson, who originally wrote all this, is gonna come and kind of explain it from her standpoint.
She's down here or council?
She'll come here.
Okay.
And then what I'm trying to listen to is I'm listening to everybody here. I'll listen to this again, kind of get with the council member so that she can present something that answers a lot of your questions. I mean, not all, but, and she try to answer those questions and then, present a complete picture. And then y'all as the planning commission basically looks at this in workshops. So that I'm sure council also want to do workshop, but be less, but you do more of the workshop before that.
We have to be the gatekeepers of the community, really. I mean,
I think it's great, and I appreciate that she's taken so much time to do this. It's a lot of work.
It is. She's excited about it.
The last thing that we were gonna talk about is moving forward in the sign ordinance conversation. I know Julie spent a lot of time with this and we had met and discussed a few things, but did you have a presentation that you put together?
I didn't have to do it,
Okay.
because you wanted to know
Perfect.
paragraph by paragraph.
Well, I wanted to cut this down. I think there's so much of this that doesn't necessarily need to be in here if we agree to some of the stuff that you and I talked about. Can I see that? I'll just read through my stuff.
Okay.
I don't remember all things filed up, but,
Brandon, you want this back, I'll give this back.
oh, did you want to go over that?
Yeah, I can do the basic, I can do the basics, so
Okay.
what I think y'all are, I'm just gonna assume a few things, so. What I tried to do, and I didn't provide much of a staff report, what I did though, is I took some cities nearby, Bulverde probably being, the least restricted, and Fredericksburg being the most restricted. Getting through those towns, I tried to target all of those. After I got to you, I could kind of see the difference. But having said that, our basic signage here is nothing electronic. Your monument is 64 foot, or basically your face size is 64 foot for any one area. And even with multi-tenants, it can only be split between those to make it 64. Unless you've been, let's say, vested rights and you were here before that ordinance came on board. For most part, depending on what district you're in, you're either at either 12 foot or 8 foot. And I'm a less is more kind of person, so that's essentially what you're talking about. And we do allow, some places don't allow monopoles, which is a one pole. We do, in some situations, and some we don't. Multifamily only allow 32 foot. I think the height, I'm not looking at it right now, I think the height is 8 on that. So, that is, in a nutshell, what this city is. There is light, there is, so electronic isn't allowed, light is. And those are the basics. I don't know the other communities enough to know exactly what they are, but it is, you do have those listed. So if you're looking through those and you like something like other things, that was just research I put together about a month and a half ago for y'all to look at.
Or when you say 35 feet, are you saying square feet or?
64 square feet. So,
One sheet of plywood.
yeah, for example, I think Eldad is like 60. So, I mean, that's, 64 is what it is. I think on the wall sign, I think on the wall here, you do 10%. That's another component of that. And there's some discussion about whether it should be 10% excluding windows or including windows and all that kind of stuff. But that's what we're at.
I got all my notes and my thoughts, but I figured I'll go last if y'all want to start. Throwing out where y'all are right now. I know we've had a few months to talk and think about this. Hoping everybody's had an opportunity to really think about it.
The more I think about the sign ordinance, the more I really hate sign ordinances. I think it's just flat out. In so many ways, especially, I mean, it's just extent. But man, I drove through this past weekend through town. I moved from there's no, it's in the county, there's no regulation, there's no sign ordinance, which means they were allowed to do beautiful, awesome things with their signs. And it shows, it reflects. The business owners took pride in the businesses that they're creating. They took pride in the signs that they created. It's just lovely, even the darn bull signs. So I just I was just thinking this weekend.
Well, that's what you're just.
Because that's exactly what I'm getting to. I just want to do this.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. You know, and put them back.
Okay, so my first thought when you look at this is there are so many categories where it talks about different signs, different spaces, whether it's on a vehicle, whether it's on a apartment complex, whether it's on a business. My thought is we just simplify and have one thing that's standard across the board. The number that makes the most sense to me is 2 feet, 2.75 feet per 1 foot of side of your building. It isn't so huge that it's out of place, but it makes it where the bigger your building, the bigger your sign. And then I think that applies to just everything. It doesn't matter what kind of business you have. I mean, Real Ale's a massive building. I think they should have a 16-foot monument sign that's, 2 feet off the ground with letters that are 14, 16 inches tall, so that when you drive in town, you know it's there.
But wouldn't it be okay if they covered that entire wall with their sign and made it something that was?
A great big beer on it.
Sure. One of the things that we had talked about was allowing murals, allowing art, letting people have some more flexibility. I'm not a big fan of pole signs, but I think wall signs and monument signs, and then let people have some flexibility to really make their business and bring in more attention. Nobody's going to say much. I'll strip from the list, and tell me where I'm wrong.
No, I'm in agreement. I think that's the whole point. Why it's so broad, it's so convoluted. I think we're all a little.
Yeah, I think we just simplify, right? You take 40 pages and you get it down to 10. So sure, Warren's gonna say boilerplate stuff has got to be in there. But like banners and feather signs, my thought is special events or first 30 days of your business. I understand some people aren't a big fan of feather signs, and that's all fine with me. But I think the first 30 days, let's give a business every opportunity to be noticed. And then after that, it's for special events. Okay, and maybe it's city recognized special events. I think.
What if you have a special advantage of your business?
Sure, that's, yeah, but so the way we had written this in was,
Free coffee.
yes, I think if you got something special going on, it's different. They just haven't been on all the time. But I really crunched some numbers and went through and looked at a lot of businesses around town. I think 2.75 feet per 1 foot of building frontage really made sense in terms of space. But I think a lot of these businesses around here that historically had signs that bridge the entire front of their building. Why are we fighting history if we're sitting here saying we want to be historical town? And my thought would be that would be for wall signs and for monument signs. Just you can have a bigger monument sign. Rainbird down here used to have a nice monument sign until it got ran over by a big truck. They haven't put one up because now with the new sign ordinance, they've got to have a certain setback that the property is so close to the road, but they don't have to put it in, so they just have this little sign on the side of the building. If you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is.
Well, businesses shut down in the last 15 years in this town because people didn't know that they were there and they were open for almost 2 years. And those are comments that were very common and frequent. So we're out to promote tax revenue, got to help the business owners promote their business. I think the biggest thing about the banners and the flyers and all that, it's like, hey, you're not gonna be responsible to take down a faded, nasty looking sign that really just looks like trash now after 30 days and replace it with a nice one. Well, that's where the city should get involved and say, this is the reason we have a code. Make sure that your business is presentable, the sign is legible, right? We're not trying to.
Oh, yeah, I'll get set up, right?
I don't think we should have a sign size if it's on the building. I mean, you know, if you wanted to cover that entire part of above your windows, I think you should be able to. I don't think you should be in a box where it has to be a certain size. Because I was looking at the business on the front here, their sign's bigger. It's not inside the box of the size. It's bigger proportionately in their space than yours is. It's almost the whole thing.
I hadn't thought about just not limiting that.
Can you talk about 419?
No, I think she's talking about you want it, we got it. you
Yeah.
Got it.
There we go.
And that's a neat something.
And I want to just go back, if they put that into enforcement, if these people, businesses spent a bunch of money on a nice sign and went and put it up, Warren, are you gonna go tell them to take it down?
If they-
So the answer is if you're a new business and there's a complaint, and if you don't follow the rules, then yes, I'll make it take it down. Now I'm gonna take a step back. There were things already in violation when I first got here. I did not investigate every single thing to see if it came before or after the ordinance. It was before or after me. So anything that came after me, I tried to make sure that it was done the right way.
That's fair.
Have we done that all the time? Has that 100% happened? Probably not. But we try.
That's an interesting thought. We can talk about that more in a minute.
I mean, I do think there should be restriction on color. Yeah, I mean, like, we talked about fluorescent colors. I mean, like, keep it historical. That's the whole reason the square has the historic colors is to keep it historical, even though there's places that have out.
Sure, but I would argue that Uptown's colors on that textile building, I love it. Those don't necessarily fit inside this, but they're great. I think we should take all the color restrictions out except for maybe neon colors, but I'm pretty open to just letting people run their business.
We're
celebrating the 80s, bro.
Yeah, I tell you, in Lockhart, there's a town, I think there's a place on their square that neon colors.
Did you like them? Okay, then maybe we should.
Exactly.
So one of my thoughts is allowing businesses to have one large sign for side of the business or side of the building. Right now it says you can have one unless your building faces two roads, then you have two. I don't really care. Or Bianca wants to put a sign in the back of the building, face no one. If they want to spend the money on it to advertise to no one, okay, great. But it didn't make sense to me that it's saying one when you're sitting here, or even two, when Texas Regional should be able to have one on the two roads and then one facing the customers as they come in. I don't see why that would be an issue. Allowing for murals and art, but I do think that having this reviewed and approved by city staff, simplifying it so that you just look at it, make sure somebody's not drawing some satanic thing or something that we don't, whatever it ends up being, that's appropriate. Removing color requirements, my thought is no pole signs, but I think everybody's gonna get their own opinion on that. Larger monument signs, going back to allowing them to have, I do think you need some sort of a size restriction there so that it's appropriate to the size of the business. I think we need to keep talking about electronic signs. I know some people are pro, some people are against. I think people are pro, wanted to have some limitations, so just figuring out exactly what we agree on there. Allowing for signs over 281, this would kind of require the city to have poles that would be able to have those put up. But yeah, so my thought would be,
Right.
it would go up a month before the event, you'd have a week after the event to take them down. Different events, a thing that says opening hunting season or lavender festival, and so when people come into town, they know what's going on, because if you got here 3 weeks before something, it'd be great for you to get, oh, we gotta come back to that. Versus you have to.
The chili cookout, where
Exactly.
people always do that stuff, yeah.
Is that gonna be only a city sponsored event that's gonna be allowed to drape a big sign across there? Because
I would say it's city, right, so the city, you come to the
we
city
wouldn't
saying,
want public like private statements, political or something just getting draped across there, because then it's sort of
no, but if the
impacts
Sure,
the
come up,
city.
comes to Warren and say,
Yeah.
hey, here's the banner we're going to put up, and he's
Yeah,
like, look at it,
fair.
like, here you go.
Got the car show, the sign, car show.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think just leaving it up to staff to sign off on it real quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of times we'll just put that on council agenda as a consent item or something. But yeah, I mean, those are usually pretty easy if they're civic mind type things.
So removal or repair of signs within 90 days. So we talked about certain things that were left out, but I think it would make sense to have then something in there that gives city staff teeth on there that says, repair or removal of sign within 90 days, or it's $100 a day afterwards. Something that's like, okay, we've got to get this thing in there. Yeah. I mean, that's my thought,
I did too, if you look at
For an
the
operating
amendment,
business.
Yeah,
Business
or
is operating, and if they have a sign that's just not legible and looks like it's falling apart, and they gotta do something about it, what you're saying?
yeah, I would say you've
Yeah.
got Elegant with the gas station sign.
so there's parts in here that says 60 days, but it doesn't say that anything to the dilapidated or broken sign. So I would try to make the days consistent, so it's easy for city staff to remember, like, what versus 30 here, 60 there. They're different.
You want consistency.
Yeah, so we need to 60 days or whatever.
That's good. That's 2 months.
Yeah, one of them said 60. It wasn't for dilapidated, it was for code enforcement, I think. Back here, legal non-conforming or something.
Well, I don't think that's gonna apply much, because we're trying to get rid of all that to make it open for people to have kind of whatever sign they want, but I would say from an aesthetic standpoint, it doesn't have to be a pretty sign for a business owner to like their sign. But I would say if it's a hazard from a safety standpoint, or if it was installed that close to the road that someone's turning in on, then it should be something where we take action. If someone wants an ugly looking 4x4 sign that's not causing any damage to someone sitting on their property, that is their right. Versus if they're actually trying to utilize it for signage and advertising of their business, but it's not code compliant, or if it is a safety hazard, I think that's what we should step in.
Roof signs, we had talked about having letters on the rooftop. I think just having some simple thing that says allowing it, but up to a maximum height above the building, so they don't have 20-foot tall bull. Hey, some of y'all like the bull. So my thought would be like 3 feet or 2 feet or whatever it is above, so that you can have nice legible letters, but it's not 10-foot tall letters. So hanging signs, I think once again, just like you got in front of City Hall, I think those need to be allowed if we're gonna have them, especially if the building of the compliance has signs that aren't allowed in the ordinance. We probably should allow them to be put in.
Hanging signs. Hanging signs.
Not in the way that it explains it in the sign ordinance, not, I think you get one and it's gotta be 24 total feet.
Just,
8 feet above the ground, and those are not 8 feet.
Yeah.
I put in a couple, they told me, well, what if a San Antonio Spurs player comes in and hits his head? I said, if he's 7 fucking feet tall, he's gonna already know to like watch it. And I said, if he hits his head on the sign, he's gonna be grateful, because when he walks into a limestone building, he's not gonna hit his head on that. So I guess it all depends.
So I
Sorry,
think,
I cut that.
no, you're good. So I think allowing those and then putting some sort of size requirement. So my thought is don't limit the number to 1 and allow for 2, but have it be like 5 feet per foot of your building. Come up with a mathematical number that makes sense.
Again, I don't know why we would regulate it, just let them go ahead and sign. I mean, it's not gonna be, it's gonna have to fit between poles, or it's not gonna hang right?
Or is it on a sidewalk?
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe.
can't cover your door. I can spit it.
So then my next thought is remove the stuff that requires the materials, what the signs are made of, just let people have their signs.
Eco-friendly only.
So, I mean, we might have a list of not allowed signs, but then have your list of things that are allowed and kind of let people go with it and kind of create a little bit more open to the home design standards. Trying to find a way to make it 15 pages or less.
Yeah, we can't, I am gonna ask you something, though. You're talking about material, so some of the things you may see in the sign, though, a lot of times people try to do something spelled and then it wrinkles. So you do want hard surface sign, though, correct? You don't want
Sure, but in the sign ordinance, it talks about needing brick or rock or.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's very specific to like the things that it should be.
I mean, as long as it's a hard surface, as long as the, something's not gonna fade, I mean, you also, people are imaginative and they'll put some piece of crap and they'll
Not
a
sign.
crappy sign.
That's a new one to me, okay?
So, yeah, let me
So
know.
no
if it's-
traffic signs?
One thing that I do want to try to focus on is not having ads and removals, so where it doesn't allow you something here, but then it gets removed on a page, I don't want people to be able to read through, and be like, oh, okay, well, what's allowed? And then I'll have to read 19 pages back to see where, but in this circumstance, if you're on this kind of business.
Yeah.
So internal illumination, where are we at on that?
So the lit signs?
Yeah, the ones on the inside.
Well, I think you're gonna have a really hard time enforcing something like that.
Well, right now, you're not supposed to have them, but we have them.
Right,
But it's
that's
just
what I'm saying.
allow them.
Just allow them, you're not gonna, we're already not allowed, and I see them everywhere.
You're talking electronic signs?
No, the lights inside of the thing that shows.
The digital
Like
signs,
Eltron,
basically.
Eltron.
Well, it's like, let's say you've got your sign is letters, let's say whatever word you've got, and then inside of those letters is a light, so that you can read it.
At night.
Yeah, I think those are important for, I'm totally fine with that. I thought you were talking about the digital ones that kind of people were like, oh, this flashing. and
Oh,
it's
no,
not.
God, no.
I think lit signs is the way to go, so people can have
Leave it
that.
open at night.
Awning signs, we don't really have any awnings, but I think you had shown us some examples of something that was really pretty that I don't know why we regulate against it. So sign setback, so right now it says 8 foot, is there a specific reason?
Let's go backward to that lit sign, and I'm fine with that. I'm very good what you have to talk about. The only thing I'll say is that we'll need to follow the dark sky community, the 2700.
Absolutely. But right now, we've got signs with light shining down on them, shining up at them. And I feel like you can have an internally lit sign that's less bright, but more visible. When you're driving, you can see it better, but it's not as bright.
We know Oral Bianca's, I don't know if it's in compliance or not. It actually does less visibility to the sign, and every time I'm driving, I think it's a car on 281
It's
in
not.
my direction.
It's not compliant.
And I try to, look, that's their sign, and I always check it, because it really messes with me. So those would be ones I'd say, be very careful, those are massive floodlight, and it's at that angle where it's not hitting the sky, but it's hitting just enough where it looks like headlight. And no, it's a sign, and I've turned in, after the fact, but I think the lit signs, like you're saying, the side is the easiest on your eyes, and from a night sky, that light really only stays, 5 or 6 foot above the ground, really.
Sign step back, so right now it says 8 feet. I think where I run into an issue on that one is in front of Rainbird. I don't know if there's really 8 feet for them to put a sign there appropriately. So I just didn't know.
Where that came from.
Yeah, like what's the reason for 8 foot past, I guess, Eaton or whatever that ends up looking like?
I don't know, usually in parking lots, things like that, usually the wheel spot's 5 foot, so, I mean, I'll have to look whether it's a safety issue of 8, but usually most things are going increments at 5 or 10. So I'm not sure why.
I
they did it.
I thought the monument sign was not a setback were for safety vehicles.
Well, sure, but I don't know, yes, but I don't know why it's 8 and not 5 or 10, that's what I'm saying.
8 from the property line or 8 from?
It's 8 from right away, is what it is.
Where the driveway ends, the end of the sign has to be 8 feet, and the base would be like, I don't know, in there at 10 feet.
I couldn't do that.
That's not the code one, we just follow their code, because that is, they'll take your sign directly out of the ground. I think especially those billboard or banner ones that people put up, if it's too close to that, they'll just remove them. I've seen them loading them up and sawing them off. So I think if we just follow their code, I think we'd be golden.
And then you allow enough for walk. Since there's no sidewalks, like you look up 281, they're walking up off the curb into the grass is where the people are having to walk, Like an imaginary sidewalk there. like they're not walking out in the street. On 281, their easements right at the curb. They have no right of way.
On what
beyond
side?
The curb.
Yeah.
So
On what side of 281?
I'm on the west side, right next to the surveyor.
Okay, because on our side of Uptown Blanco, they own everything up into the painted glass.
Yeah.
That whole railing,
Yeah.
sidewalk and awning is all easement. That all belongs to them.
They don't have.
So where
patio.
we are, like when
Even
you,
though they didn't put in $1 for it, I mean, it's all easement, so they can do whatever they want
They
with
can
it.
take it
yeah, where
away.
we are, they own right where the curb is, and then there's a little, you can see a little, concrete flat piece to where the asphalt starts, and he says, nope, we're just right there.
Maybe
Like,
north of it, but like
Yeah.
right here across from the courthouse, it's literally the painted glass.
yeah.
Literally.
My house is on the east side. They would wipe out about this much of the front of my house,
Yeah,
all my front porch. And
Sorry,
I'm on
the sign
two
is
acre
talking.
You're good. There's few enough people here. We can have this conversation with this. So my main point was kind of, let's figure out those signs that are kind of in here that aren't allowed and any others that we would not allow. And then the ones that are allowed, kind of let them go with it. Simplify what the restrictions are. Bill thoughts?
well, mine, I agree, I don't like pole signs. I'm okay with all the other like murals and painted, and I would rather see the signs lit up in the letters than having the spotlight shining at them. Because I do understand what Andrew says, because the surveyor does have sort of like this spotlight, but I mean, that's not necessarily bad, just as long as they point it right. I would like if the business goes out of business, they should take their sign down. Particularly if it's a non-conforming, and I would match that up to this, like, if 60 days is it, which is mentioned, I would do that for dilapidated signs, blown down signs, out of business
Signs
signs.
are no longer with the business.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I did notice reading in here that, if you have a grandfathered sign and your sign's blown down or is 50% destroyed, it needs to come back conforming.
But that's correct.
So,
Yes.
so that,
Well, that's why people have been living their signs along for so
Yeah.
long. Because it's been hard to get it crap.
so
One more
just that
thing.
business thing was one. And then I'm for the church having an electronic sign, but for me, I would want it muted in color, like a black and a white. Or I would not want it neon, I would not want it flashing, and I would not want it scrolling. Because for them, they just had said they wanted to be able to put information out there. So that information, in my mind, with a change up, no more than once every 24 hours, it doesn't give you the appearance that it's flashing, scrolling. Like, I understand why they don't want those little letters that blow off, especially, with the winds we get.
So I think that was a split decision with council. It was if I remember, it was 3-2. That variance. Obviously councils change, ideas change. I've always been, as long as it's needed, I've always been fine with that, but it's up to you and council to
So
decide.
did it pass? Because mine would be
No, no.
muted no more than the two colors, the background
No, it's
letters,
split
no
3-2.
scrolling, no flashing. And so basically, and then it has to do the LEDs for the,
It did not pass.
So basically what we ran into was, in my mind, I thought that was a fine location for it, but what was stated was that they didn't want to make the exception for them. If it was going to be allowed, it needed to be written into the sign ordinance. Probably run into is if we read it in the sign ordinance, how many churches do we have up and down the highway? Now all of a sudden you have 15 of them versus one. So I don't know if we want to add in electronic signs or not, because I'm not necessarily pro having 20 of them around town, but having one or two done bottom. So
Well, I don't mind any of them. For instance, I think it's mainly for the local traffic, right, for churches and stuff like that. If I pass at 8:30 in the morning, the first thing I say is come, celebrate Easter Sunday with us or that, boom. I come back for lunchtime and the next advertisement is youth nights happening tonight. As long as it's not a rapid strobe, like
You gotta
Or my
scroll.
subcontractor's Apache,
It's
so,
like
and
beefies.
the other guy at Norton, then you can't read it. I don't
Yeah.
care how slow you drive.
So
It's
it's always
always
up 5, 10 minutes.
And so really, it's a safety distraction where I'm kind of like, oh, I know what they do. They're an HVAC company, but I'm really curious to see what they're trying to advertise. Well, I can never see it because it's just like that. So if we're getting legalistic, I think it's saying, no, rapid fire style, but if you had something that was on an automated 10 images a day that just promotes what's going on through the week, I don't think that's distracting. I don't even think you would know if you went there in the morning, came back, that it was changed, right? So I think if we're getting specific and trying to make this not so convoluted, having a little bit of red tape in there that's, easy to understand, I think it makes sense. And I like the electric sign for that style of business. I don't think I need El Charro telling me how many different specials they got going
Well,
on.
that's,
But I
So then
think
you
for
have
business,
institutions only.
I would think, because that's really what they're for. Gas station, they already have what they have, right?
I think in the amendment, it stated, well, if you read it, it said for government, nonprofit, something else in that little paragraph. But I would limit muted, only two
Absolutely.
colors, no flashing, no scrolling, no more than, say, 2 messages a day.
Well, whatever it is, if the sequence is a 5 to 10 or 15-minute delay between an image, that's not a distraction. That's not a thing you're not even gonna know. Like I said, if you came through town once a day and you saw that one, you wouldn't have known that it is changing out twice since you left town that morning. But the rapid fire, look at this, and all the extra artwork for whatever reason, it's distracting. I can see that, especially when you're going 70 miles an hour on 281. But,
And some of those are near residential, so you have to be sort of cognizant of that too.
you imagine how much you're saving on paper, flyers and stuff for events if you had more of that local advertisement.
So my
That
thought
would be mine.
is if you go through this, there's a lot of things to talk about. Ground sign, type of sign, hanging sign, wall sign,
Window sign.
car sign, window sign. My thought is if you took out almost all of that and just said X, I get your point, and I don't think we can talk more about it, but if it just says 2.75 feet per 1 foot, wall sign, window sign, or window sign, then you don't need 20 pages explaining each sign's requirements. And then we take out the fact of, I don't care if you're an apartment building or a coffee shop, get the sign based on the size of the building you have. And
Have the freedom up it to that day or just to stick with a minimum.
yeah, they can go as small as they want,
Right.
but here's the maximum, and it's based on the size of your building. So real life can have a massive sign, whereas, your coffee shop will be a little smaller because it's a smaller building, okay? But still give them the flexibility to be successful.
I don't like the number thing. I think it just needs to stay within a confine of the space.
Well, that's basically saying not to make it complicated, but just to arbitrarily say so they can read something. So yeah, I get it. Make the sign at least a minimum size up to this is allowed. Here's your colors and your recommendations.
And then it also
I
says,
like up to, because some people may need some guidance.
Right.
and then it also talks about only one additional sign after your main sign. Why, I like Laura Bianco having their name up top and then a couple signs down below. It looks good to me. I don't know why we're telling somebody only have one of those. The second one's informative. It looks good. So I don't know if limiting that stuff is necessarily the business thing to get in either.
Didn't the garage used to sign get taken down? It was the whole side of the wall. Garage used to, with the little convertible,
Yeah,
they had to take it down because it wasn't conforming. But it was
that was my understanding, was right on here, but yes,
the entire size. of
they
the-
made them take it off.
And it was adorable.
It was great.
And I thought it was a mural.
Right.
Totally had.
But in our sign ordinance, it doesn't differentiate between mural and sign. So I think we just allow for murals and art approved by the city staff. So if you're gonna put up a big mural, you just go to one and say, here's what I want to draw. You go, that's my opinion. The vote is like,
But that's just like a sign that's painted on the building. So if you're okay to paint anything you want on your building.
well, your sign would then,
Yeah, so that was their issue, is that they didn't paint the mural, they actually put a sign because it was
Right.
old, they made them.
Right, so that's what I'm
They could
saying.
paint it
Why would
without-
you want to restrict one?
Right.
What building was this?
The little garage.
The fake building, the fake building left.
Okay, that's different. I think
Like
it's
a
Superior
college.
Historical District.
It's
So then
not-
you gotta be real careful where you're putting your
Right,
sign,
right,
what you're
right.
planting on.
Yeah, so that was down by Old Iron Horse next door to that building that hadn't been refurbished yet, but it was overall, that I think should have been allowed to stay.
I would think so too.
But mural wise, they can paint whatever they want, because the city's not gonna really be able to say, oh, I don't like that, you can't paint that. I mean, it's just, you're just checking for conformity of size, you can't tell them what it has to look like.
Well, I think there are certain things such as vulgarity, real strong colors. I think those are certain things that.
We're strong colors.
Is that?
Those were strong colors, but they look good.
Yeah.
Well, but that wasn't allowed at the time, so what we're saying is let's allow it, but just have you bring the picture to Warren before you put it up, just so that he can say, yeah, that looks fine, not having a hard threshold to cross, but so if you're trying to draw something that says, F you like it,
Yeah.
no.
So you want to be careful.
You know, these are real issues in a bigger town for sure. You know, I was in Austin for many years. We literally were saved because of the ordinances, where we could restrict businesses like strip clubs and this, that, and the other, which were trying to come into our complex. And those were nice things to have for that reason.
Yeah.
I think given the freedom like we're talking about and making this a lot easier for people to understand what's allowed, I think that's going to give the ownership and a lot more incentive for people to be like, I'm going all out. You know, I really have free, you know, people just get, the city's going to tell me I can't do something. They usually tend to go the opposite side and they want to be more of a rebel. I'm do this anyways. So either they end up trying to go down that road, wasting money, or they end up not doing anything for that. So, you know, I like what we're talking about for sure, but I think Julie keeps going back to just simplify it, right? What does that mean?
I just think we shouldn't be in the business of trying to affect how successful business can be. Like, let's
Right.
simplify this as much as possible while protecting our town and its charm. I don't think simple's bad. I think we're all kind of on the same page with that. So now it's how little do we need to put in there to be specific enough to be right, but allow flexibility for business owners.
So process, what are you expecting of staff? Are you expecting to see the ordinance in March or April, or do you want to talk about it in March and then bring it to you in April? What are you looking for as a commission?
Well, originally, I think the conversation was we should figure out what we want, what we don't want in there. And then you and Tim would organize it to where it has boilerplate stuff and then the specifics. And so I think really just saying what signs are allowed, what signs are not allowed, the ones that are allowed, here's the fee requirements we're putting on it.
Do we even have to say what is allowed? Can we just not say, these are the few things that aren't allowed?
Okay, but if you say that, so let's say we're saying we're allowing monument signs. So if we say these are things that aren't allowed and people want to put in a monument sign, but we don't put any size restrictions on it, then what keeps them from putting in something that's just over the top massive versus something that makes some sense?
Oh, that would be,
You know, 200 foot sign versus a 2,000 foot sign. Not somebody would do it, but if you don't give some sort of limitation. people-
well, that would be the not, the what's not allowed. I would, that's what I'm thinking about, any restriction would be. And you just put in any restriction that exists.
Because right now, if you look at the back of the sign ordinance, it's got a bunch of these things like this.
Mhm.
And it types of type of business, maximum area, maximum height, maximum number. My thought is if it just says the few signs that are here, and then it just says maximum X by X. And that's one line, and you don't have 1, 2, I think it was like 4 different things that are in here to talk about different businesses, different types of
Right.
tiles per business. I just don't know why we're worried so much about all the moving parts. Do I need to thought? You look like you're gonna say.
I really appreciate the thorough conversation. I mean, I guess one aspect, I think I agree with Julie, I'm not sure. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that you put into how big a sign can be that's actually on a business. I guess just me personally, I'm thinking business. And then there was the question of building materials, and I certainly don't want to tell people what they build their signs up, but can we just say building grade materials? Can we leave it really vague like that? I mean, I don't
So they're
know.
not
You know,
Okay, if I had a lumber yard, I could make a cool sign, stacking pallets together and have a lumber yard, come get Candy's wood. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe that's too general, but I mean, I understand that's not wanting to have signs that town that are made themselves. But I don't want to tell people they have to use stone or brick, but if we could just say something a little bit more general.
I need someone that put a canvas sign, and every few weeks we have to make them, kind of, when we get bunched up, and then we pull it out a little bit. And just saying, that's, people do things.
Yes. Thank you.
One thing I'm wondering about, I think I agree with you. I don't care how many signs a business puts on their business. But when we start talking about monument signs, are they, I mean, if they wanted to, I'm thinking about when people get flamingos here in town, and there's flamingos all over their yard. Can we put that many monument signs in on their lots?
Well, I would think you would have the same regulation that you would have, so one large sign per side of the building. So you have one monument.
So you are limiting it to, I was just curious, I didn't
One
know.
large sign.
Okay.
I don't think you would have one large sign that says Redbud Cafe, and then across all my windows, it'd be the same sign that just stretched across all the windows, right? I mean, you're not on one side of the building, you're not gonna have multitudes of the same thing, but I think just, right now it says 164-foot sign, or you can have two if your building faces two directions. I don't know why we limited that way, around saying just one side per side of your building, and then you can have smaller.
Are you talking about the monument? I'm assuming that's for visual.
No, so
Big and blocky.
right now, it says monuments maximum space is 64 feet. It says you can have one. His question was, would you just have somebody that builds like 9 of them in their yard?
I don't think they would actually do that. I was wondering.
It looks like a cemetery.
Right, that's, I mean, we would want something to prevent that, yeah.
Yeah, I just figure you have something in there that just says one large sign per side of your building. And then somebody else put a sign on the back of their building facing a creek. Okay, don't know how many people are gonna see it, but that doesn't affect any of us, so how about it?
I agree. Well, as I'm reading it more, looking in it, there's so many contradictions.
Yes.
And actually repeating itself. So in here, it's basically saying for safety, yada, 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 we want to make sure people can see and the signs are legible. And then go over to this one too, explaining the same thing, legible in the circumstances in which they are seen. So it's saying all these really good things that are repeating themselves. And then when it comes down to it, what am I allowed to do? Well, this is your requirement. So it's really actually redundant. I think we just literally had safety, and installation for recommendations. The safety is very important, right? We don't want something that's too low or someone thinks there's a sidewalk and go underneath it and it's 5 foot tall, so people are hitting their head or bending under a sign right by a walkway. So real basic language terms, but I think we kept 1, 2, 3, 4 headers as our main thing within that, and then the rest is minimum to whatever you want to do.
Simplify the. see-
Really
see
simplify,
right.
because they're, like I said, they're repeating themselves, and for these things, it's the same thing. And really, in all honesty, according to what they allow and don't allow, they're not actually even able to attain this legible signs, this, with that, and the other. You're not really allowed to theoretically.
Right,
That's what
you
they're
read
asking
real
for.
L sign when you write up,
Right.
you're going 55 miles an hour.
Right, and they want all that stuff, and then when you go to the requirements, it's not allowed. So it's, someone would have put this together, overthought it, obviously, and was very concerned, and I think they were probably trying to do something good for the town. Hey, well, people want to put signs up, no.
Well, I think there's a difference between having people that are business minded trying to help
Right.
businesses with sign ordinance and some that's not. I think they're both valid in different
Right.
ways, but trying to not control our businesses from a city standpoint, because we want our businesses to do well, because that's where our tax dollars come from, but still maintain the cute charm that we have. Okay, so it sounds like we're all pretty
Just
much.
clarification, so I bring this back, I started reading through, I understand what you're talking about as far as the wall signs, the percentages. I understand what you're talking about there. What I don't think you address, or something that we have, for a monopole sign or monument, we are currently at 64 foot and 8 or 12 foot in height for different areas. I don't think you've actually advise staff on whether you want the 64 bigger, smaller?
My thought would be the same size restrictions that would go inside of the building would then go on the mining sign. So the bigger your building, the bigger your sign could be. So, I mean, I think Real having a 16-foot by 4-foot sign wouldn't be unrealistic versus if Burger Pottery, for some reason, wasn't sitting on the curb, wouldn't have a sign that size, right? You'd have 20 feet, so you'd have 6 feet by, or 4 feet by 2 feet, something that's more appropriate for the size of the building. Like, so I think
I
you
don't
could,
know, because have you all ever seen the Big Huge Horseshoe? Is that one Texas? Big Huge Humongous Horseshoe that looks real cool. It's in the front of there.
Is it like Patsy's?
I think it's.
I'm struggling with the difference between a sign that takes up an entire wall and a mural, because I think I make a drive to Gideon's pretty frequently. And there's some old businesses on their own old main drive there, and the whole wall is a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how old they actually are, if they just made them look old, but I know one's a Coca-Cola, one's a tobacco sign. Which maybe there's an issue with that, but it's charming in its context. But anyway, it's the whole wall. And yes, there's letters there. It's signage, but it's also a mural. I mean, there's art that's around it. I don't know. I'm just struggling with that. I find it really appealing.
Well, I think in the modern society with the kind of businesses we have nowadays, it was never, we want to keep the old charm, but, an electric, computer store or something where it sells games, I don't think they're going to want to have a filigree and a hand carved sign, so having flexibility and a mural would be awesome.
well, it sounds like you're in agreement with Julie in terms of why restrict it to X amount of feet on the side of the building versus letting them do one.
I mean, I'm just listening to this conversation. Yeah, that's
You're talking about like the commingling between signage and mural art or something.
fine. Can't be.
So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna do the math in my office. And if what you're talking about for a pole sign ends up looking more like a call that, more highway sign, then we'll have to.
Well,
There's
that's why
no
I'm thinking
pole
no pole
signs.
signs.
No
What's that?
pole signs.
I'm talking about pole sign.
Right,
Yeah.
I think this, then you keep your signs lower, which would allow people to have bigger signs because it wouldn't be blocking this building.
No, but like billboard and pole signs.
There wouldn't be any instances where a monument sign could become a driving obstruction.
I mean, if you go high enough, that's where we
Yeah.
have information about height, right?
If it's next to the driveway, there's, so you're gonna wanna make sure you get that right, or then all of a sudden you'll be liable if somebody get there, they're gonna say, well, the city allowed it, so then you get pulled into a lawsuit.
So I think we've got requirements on height on monument signs right now, right?
What's that?
We've got requirements on heights of monument signs right now.
Yeah, because it depends what district you're involved in.
This text, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about height and signage.
Talk about height.
Well, I think we should just put their regulations in there, and that
Yeah,
would be
what-
the actual
yeah.
position and size, and then anything else is just up to you.
And whatever they say from driveway and stuff too.
Yeah, over those.
But my thought is if we allow them to be bigger, then the pole signs would be more complicated as they got bigger. So I'm not a fan of pole signs. I think if you didn't have the pole signs, then it would allow the signs to be bigger and fit better. But that's a personal opinion that I think other people don't feel the same way.
And pole sign, you're meaning like massive, tall pole,
Yeah.
big, whatever on top.
No, I think we're talking about like a pole, like, I think Country Liquor has one where it's like a 6-foot pole and then a 64-foot sign. In my mind, I wouldn't want those pole signs to be bigger than they are now. But if I go in by what we're talking about would mean they need the signage, then I think it gets complicated.
Is there a substantial price difference as a business owner between a pole sign and a monument
Or
sign? I always thought monument signs were a lot. more
Anything
expensive.
lit up or anything pole side related, they're not cheap.
Oh, but the pole signs are more expensive.
I would think so. The structure.
A monument sign?
Well, depending on how crazy, what kind of material you do, but if you're just in a little plaque monument or something, you can go to Etsy or, Amazon and literally get, type in your stuff and get one shipped to you. For the ones at Lowe's, for instance, those style pole signs, obviously the whole structure is crazy expensive, but just those boxes up there alone, that's a $3,500 to $4,000 $100,000 sign job.
And a lot of the
Give or
pole
take.
signs they'll tilt over time. It's part of their problem.
The poles are often, and I'm not advocating the business, but a lot of people like pole signs because you talk about height and being able to see. So let's say you're driving down the street and most of the McDonald's signs, the old ones are really tall. And you see, oh yeah, I'm gonna stop there here in half a mile. And that's why people like the high signs. And then we don't have that here, but that's the reason why monopoles are very common.
So I'd like to get more community input, and since y'all are the only community that showed up, what are y'all's thoughts so far on what you've heard?
Well, I agree with what you've been saying about, they're just too complicated. Ordinances, and I think they could be cut down quite a bit. But I do think there should be restrictions on this sign. Big billboard type signs or the one floor in front of Laurel Angle, that light is killer. And I think there should be, rules about that sort of thing, light. Maybe they should keep it on all night. Well, they don't. They don't shut it off till like midnight or so. Shut off.
Who's that? What business?
Bianca.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, I just don't like a lot of big glary signs. Like keep more smaller and more fitting with small town rural type atmosphere. As opposed to a strip mall type.
Right.
Yeah.
And the realty you don't want the digital coming in from San Antonio. There's a storage thing. It has everything scrolling all the time.
Right.
If I'm driving at night. It's a killer.
So, you prefer-
Yeah. I can't.
Plus, they can't really read what they're saying. I'm glad you're advertising. I know it's a storage place, but what are you actually saying? And I, that can't look away kind of. Never mind, I can't read.
I just had a thought, looking at them saying what they're saying, we were talking about the lit signs, with the internal lit. I do think that maybe we should consider a restriction, so say you do have somebody who does this whole side of the wall. You don't want that whole side of the wall to be lit, so maybe there should be a restriction on the size for lit signs.
It's a good idea.
I just wonder if any of our night sky ordinance already covers that. I don't know that to be a fact, but I'm curious about that.
Well,
And I'm
yeah.
curious, or Bianca keeps getting picked on tonight. I wonder if they are in compliance with the night sky ordinance. I don't know.
think it has to do with
Our
building
neighbor-
limits.
Our neighbor complains about the surveyor's sign on 10. They sit out and they complain about that sign all the time.
Does it have a like?
It has the two lights that go, it's like a billboard sign.
Well, actually, they're.
And then-
Shines down.
No, I think they're both at the bottom.
They must have-
Just
you must have added
Yeah, they
something.
complain about that. I mean, you do see it.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're all pretty close to some of the variants, right? Are you thinking that we're way off here?
I think it made progress in all honesty, Brian, just to.
So y'all
I think we're really all the same.
Okay, so how about this? I will get with you, we can write down some bullet points, you can get with Tim, try to put something together, and then we can come back with a structured plan, and then we can talk about it at that point.
Yeah, we can see if we can get this down to. What's it currently at, it's like 60-page document?
No, it's like,
And we put.
mine's
pictures in
different
it,
than
like
this one,
Julie
this
put
one's
that
39.
in. I love that.
So if we
I
get down
really do.
to 12 or 15,
I am
Be
being,
happy.
I'm being curious.
and then you guys can go and find through it. Right, we'll see, but you don't want to put together before that, that's what before, right?
And the other one was about, or what about the advertising for what's on that property? So people aren't putting up now these unlimited size signs and they're advertising for 10 other businesses that are even located there. So we're gonna keep that. and
Well,
have-
Right now, off premise, that's a good question.
Yeah, the
Off premise signs are not allowed.
Right.
Do you want them to allow them or not?
I mean, wouldn't it be nice if you knew that market things was happening, when you're coming in, the other direction of town? I think it would be nice. Like, and I was bringing up, like Josie, it would be nice to know that there's a restaurant right around the corner right there. I mean, can people abuse it? Sure, but
Would be a variance versus just allowed.
There's 2 off premise signs now that I see all the time. I don't know if I ever noticed, but one I just started noticing, there's one that says barbecue down the road or something like that.
Now, is that considered off premise? They own the
They own
property.
that building.
Yeah,
It's your
so
business.
Barbecue on the square.
barbecue and swear. So if you own the property, it's still off premise, but you're right, it's not, it's still owned by you, but it's off premise, it's not on the premise.
But if it's part of
Which
the same
makes sense.
operation, like let's say they make their barbecue sauce there and then they run the business somewhere else, would that be off premise?
Think about it, and then,
I don't know if it matters. I don't know that that's.
I think they passed it because it's too many signs for the drivers advertising things that are on that property.
Like, oh crap, I just have barbecue. I'm gonna turn
No,
around.
their sign probably passes because it says on the square, but it's letting everybody else advertise all these businesses that aren't on the premises. And then all of a sudden you have people turning to go there and there's no business there. Is what it
there's also
tries to
auto,
avoid.
there's also an auto on Elm Street, and there's a little, and that's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there forever.
No, right, that's correct, it would make them take it down, it's, they have actually got.
I think the hard part is I'm not a big fan of off-premise signs, but she's entirely right. I thought Josie's would have had more success if they had some sort of sign else really would they're there.
And they would have come without a variance.
So maybe that's just the instrument is,
Well, what about the blue signs that Canon has one?
those are through text box.
Right, so they already have, those exist
Well, they're
already.
Those are
super
additional
restricted.
ones.
Like,
It's super
you
expensive,
have
so-
to have like a tourist venue type. It can't just be anybody.
Yeah.
Dollars a year on beer, but not coffee.
Yeah.
So we're looking into one, but we're not gonna do it until we open the back, because there's like,
Cause you have to have some wine tasting or beer tasting.
It's gonna be only for that.
So it's a text on for the contract.
Right.
okay, anything else y'all want to go over on this tonight, or do we want to try to move forward to putting something together and reevaluate as it's built?
I like it.
Yeah, but there's no there.
Okay,
At the end of the day, it's our opinions, but I think they're making some sense to maybe we make it simple, understand there's gonna be people that are gonna listen, maybe it's like hard anyways.
Well, and we're
It's on site.
reducing the restrictions, not our opinion.
okay, so it's 7:17. We have a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, we are getting out of here at 7:17. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate y'all's interest.